Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have a bit of a collection of some of my previous fall DIYs. These are from a ways back, so you may not have ever even seen them, but they are budget friendly, many Dollar Tree items, and sometimes even cheaper than Dollar Tree, and I'd like to share all of that with you. So let's get started with today's video of these fall home decor DIYs.
First up, I have this sign. I picked this up at the thrift store, but it is originally from Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby also often has really good clearance deals on old signs, but I paid, I'm sure it was no more than $1. That's usually my cutoff, but I think I might have even gotten it for 50 cents because I think everything was half off the day I got this. But I'm just sanding down all of the glitter, and there you go. Now it's all done, just like that. And now we're going to give this a couple of base coats of the color Moss by Waverly. I am painting the edges as well as the front, and we are going to give this 2 coats is about what it took to get the coverage that I wanted. I have already did some test audio, so it should be okay, but I am outside on my patio doing this voiceover, so if you start hearing some birds chirping or something like that, that is what that is about. You know, doing fall DIYs, but outside is still feeling very much like summer, but that's okay. You got to get started at some point, and I'm making my house look like fall, and I'm enjoying summer outside. So we're going to get that fully covered with our paint, and once it is dry, we're going to go in with these stencils. This stencil is from Hobby Lobby, and I bought it a couple years ago. As you can see, it came with 2 stencils for $1.99, and if you get them 50% off, that's only $1. But I will also tell you that just today, when I'm filming this voiceover, I found a very similar stencil at Dollar General for $1, and they actually had this same set. I mean, it was so close to this set, and then another one. So you can check your local Dollar General as well. And I gave a coat of Mod Podge because I know that that helps with the bleeding of paint, but we're going to stencil in our pumpkin. I wanted to go for a little bit more of a neutral one for this DIY. So we're doing the moss green, and then we're doing the white pumpkin. Now, the Mod Podge does help with the bleed through, but I would also say that my paint was a little bit thick, so I tried to thin it out a little bit, and I think thinning it out because of the stencil, it did bleed just a tiny bit, but we'll fix that in just a minute. And then I did do 2 coats or 1.5 coats, like as needed, on the pumpkin. And then for the stem, I am using a mixture of burnt umber, I think in jet black. It's a paint that I mixed up for another DIY. You'll see it in a minute. And I had some of that mixed, and I really liked that that shade. So I didn't let it fully dry in between, but I let it dry a little bit, and then I went back in and just touched up any spots and then peeled it off, and it looks great. Now you can see the little Mod Podge lines around the stem and maybe a little bit around the pumpkin, but that's because I use a satin Mod Podge. I was trying to use up ones that I don't normally use because I have a lot of different types of Mod Podge. It's going to be fine because in the end we're going to give it a coat of matte Mod Podge, and you won't notice those little lines. So now I'm going in with a tiny paintbrush and the moss paint. Sorry, my head goes in the way and makes it go out of focus. But I'm just cleaning up a little bit. I didn't clean it up all over the place. It's a kind of a more rustic like looking. It's not like crisp anyway. But I did want to, you know, get out any of the little spots that was too much. So there it is, finished. And now we're going to go in with the matte finish of the Mod Podge. Man, you know, saying Mod Podge, you feel like you say it like 100 times in these videos, and it's just a tongue twister, and then I'm like, am I saying it wrong because it sounds weird? Anyways, here we are. We're going to just give this a good coat, and that'll smooth out the finish. It'll also help seal in the product as well, or seal in the project is what I meant to say. I have to keep picking out a few little chunks because that bottle of Mod Podge is at the very end. Now for a little added detail, I'm going to wrap some twine. This is just some twine from the Dollar Tree. And that little silicone spatula, that's also from the Dollar Tree. That is from the makeup area. And it's very handy for using with a hot glue. And I'm wrapping this around 3 times on each side and just hot gluing it in the back. You could kind of crisscross it and make it a little bit messy. This time I decided to keep it kind of more straight and even. And I just did a hot glue at the beginning and end and just kind of held it tight. And you can still move it around a little bit to adjust it, but it's not going to move around so much that it's going to like fall off or anything like that. And put some more hot glue. I'm just using the silicone spatula to like hold it down and then trim that off. I honestly don't know what you would use the silicone spatula for when applying makeup, now that I think about it. I have no idea. Anyways, okay, I have this liquid adhesive. This is from the Dollar Tree from a while ago. You can see the Crafter Square little logo, and one of these wood die cuts also from the Dollar Tree. And I pulled out this glue because I felt like there's very little space to put the glue, and the hot glue would get all over. You can see the writing on the back of that because I knew I would lose the packaging, so I wrote on it what type of materials it was good for, so that I would know in the future. But I just wanted something that had a fine tip that would be easy to apply that, and I love how this came out. I thought that was a really nice contrast, and it works well with the jute twine and all of that. And I'm putting the top back on, and that is it for this DIY. Let me know what you guys think down below. I love the mouse color. I feel like it's a great neutral. I use it all year round, but it works wonderfully in the fall and even Christmas. Up next is this DIY using a frame. You can use one you have around the house or the Dollar Tree. I like to pick them up at thrift stores, and I usually don't pay more than 50 cents for them. I often find them still wrapped in their original plastic. This one clearly had been used, but it was in great shape. It was a plastic frame, so I'm going to put down some Mod Podge before we paint it. But I like that it was a little bit thicker of a frame than sometimes I find at the Dollar Tree. And this is when I decided I wanted to paint it. I'm mixing some burnt umber and some black. So in the end, it's not a huge difference in the color, but it goes well with some paper we're going to use. And so I just wanted to not have that harsh black. So I just using paints I have and mixing colors. I actually need to buy some more of those Apple Barrel acrylic paints. I feel like I haven't bought them in years because I had so many of them. And I'm actually getting to the point where I'm using up colors that I use regularly. So I guess that means I've been doing lots of projects. So I'm going to give this 2 coats with the paint, and I'm going to just, make sure you let it dry properly in between. But, find those thrifted frames, and you can just paint them whatever color you want, even if it's a different surface, even if it's a metal one. The Mod Podge does seem to help to make it stick, and or adhere is probably the more proper term, but you can also just spray paint these frames as well. When I picked up these frames, I believe, yes, I'm sure, the thrift store had like everything 50% off, so I'm pretty sure I spent 49 cents on this one, which I was pretty pleased about. And then we're sealing it in with some more Mod Podge. Okay, I've got this scrapbook paper. It's been in my stash for a while. It's from Hobby Lobby. I love it. We're just going to trace out with a glass and cut that out. And then I had this, we're going to make sure it fits. So I did good. We're going to clean off our glass, get all the fingerprints off. And then I have this rub-on transfer from the Dollar Tree. It comes like in a packaging that makes it look like you would put on like a glass, like a drinking glass. And I wanted to put the rub-on transfer on it, but because the paper was a little bit busier, I wanted to kind of give a backdrop for this rub-on transfer. So what I'm doing is just on the glass itself, I'm painting with some white paint. Here I'm making sure I did it big enough, and I just kind of did it more abstract. I didn't do harsh lines. So it's at this point in my editing that I realized I'm missing a kind of important clip, and I can't find it anywhere. I just went and looked. So I'm guessing I didn't actually record it. So I painted 2 coats of white paint on one side of the glass, and on the opposite side, I put the rub-on transfer on top. So I don't know where that footage went, and I apologize for that. So put everything back together, put the glass and the picture and the paper background in the frame, and I made a little finger twine bow here, and then I just burn off all the fuzzies with a lighter. And we're just going to attach this to the top of our frame and trim it down. And I do love how this came out. And the rub-on transfer worked great on the glass. I just went through all my deleted footage and everything on my computer, and I can't find it. So I don't know where it went, but you hopefully can get the idea. In this way, it still pops against the background with all of the writing. And I love how this one came out. This will be used in my kitchen somewhere. All right, so our last DIY is this bucket. Once again, this was thrifted. I think I paid 50 cents for it, somewhere around there. But Dollar Tree has these, you know, you can get them Dollar General, Walmart, you can buy similar things. So I'm going to give this a good coat of Mod Podge because this material, once again, you don't want the paint to come off of it. So we're going to give this a couple coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color white, and I'm going to paint all of this. I'm going to paint the rim, the handle. I even paint the inside. Now I don't do as good of a coat on the inside, but I do paint the whole thing. And it's going to take a couple of coats, so just make sure that you let it dry. Like a broken record, but make sure you let it dry in between coats so that you don't pull the paint back off. And see, there I am doing my second coat. I even did the bottom. I did all the things, just trying to help it look, you know, as finished and professional as possible. I don't know professional, but you know, you get what I'm saying. You know, we want a finished product. And if you don't, that's okay too. You know, I really didn't have to do the inside. I kind of got lazy with it and I did the whole thing, but I really only paid attention to the top part more. You can see the inside's not as good. And okay, so the paint is all dry. We're going to go in with more of that moss color. Like I said, I use that a lot in my decor. And I'm going in with a chippy brush, and we're just going to dab it in the paint and then dab a lot of it off. And we're going to do like a dry brush with it. So it's kind of that distressed look, but with the green instead of like what you would normally have, maybe like, I don't know, a brown or a black or something. But I really like how this came out, and I thought it would incorporate well with my other fall decor. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. I don't know if it's big thumbs up or little thumbs up, but can you give it a thumbs up, because it would really help me out by liking my video. It lets YouTube know that you're digging what I'm doing, and it makes them more likely to share my video with others, which of course in turn helps me out. And if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, you know, a lot of people watch videos and they don't subscribe. You should subscribe. It would help me out as well, and it would make sure that you get notified when I post a new video. And you get to control your notification settings. So if you're like, oh, I don't want to be notified, you can turn on that notification bell and still adjust notification settings like on your phone or computer. So just a little tidbit for you, but I'd love it if you subscribed. Okay, once all the paint was dry, we're now going in with some Mod Podge. Once again, I'm using the matte finish to seal it in with, because that's the finish that I typically prefer. All right, so I just have this huge honking thing of jute cord that I just hit with a camera. I picked this up at a thrift store, brand new, still in packaging. I paid like $6 for it originally. It was like $25 at Hobby Lobby. I'll leave that haul linked for you if you missed it, but that's what I was showing you there. But you could also use some Dollar Tree jute twine. I went for this one because it's a little bit thicker, and I wanted to wrap the handle, and I thought, oh good golly, how long is this going to take? So I have a finger protector on, which I typically don't use that finger, so it didn't really help much, but I'm going to speed this up for you. But see there, I use it for the beginning and the end of the wrapping of the handle. And I'm just holding it for a little bit to let it the glue dry before I wrap it again. And at first here it kept getting tangled because I didn't cut it from the spool yet, because I was like, I don't want to cut too small of a piece, because I don't want to end up having to like start it midway, because I figured that wouldn't look great. So after a while I got the hang of it, and I could do 2 or 3 turnarounds with one bit of glue. But I'm just going around, holding it down, let it set. Doesn't take long on the metal, but you want to hold it tight. And then I'm sometimes twisting the jute as well, just to make that a little bit of a tighter, you know, it can kind of come unraveled. And we're just going to do this all the way around. You could also wrap some jute around the top or the bottom, but I liked this on the handle. You can see I kind of did a little bit of a turn there, and then we're going to trim it down, and then I'll put a little dab of glue and push that in there. And then to get off any extra glue stringies or twine stringies, this is a pretty hairy spool of twine. I'm just using my lighter, and that kind of burns that off, as well as any hot glue strings. It just kind of cleans it up a little bit. Plus, I like it because it gives little dark patches on the twine, which I think is cool. And now we're using some florals. These are from the Dollar Tree. They are fall florals. I don't know what floral they are. I can hear a little bit of thunder. I don't know if the audio is being picked up, but if you hear that, we're almost done. I'm going to get this finished before it rains. Anyways, these fall florals, and I poured some rocks in there because I have hardly any floral foam. Floral foam would work too, but the rocks weighed it down and also just kind of help keep the stems in place. But of course you can use any floral, but I liked these because they're a fall one, but they're also a little bit more neutral. I have a lot of color in my fall decor, but it's nice to mix in a little bit more neutral stuff, but you can do that, you know, however you want. And that is it. I love how this one came out. Let me know down in the comments which one of these was your favorite. All right, so we're going to be using a variety of techniques and different options in this video, but we're going to start by giving all of our pumpkins a base coat of different colors based on what I was planning to do with them. We're going for some neutral DIYs here, but you could do different colors if you wanted. Now these pumpkins, they're all styrofoam. I had actually previously used them in DIY, so I kind of went through my home decor and took some stuff out that I was like, I don't need to use this anymore. And I was not planning on taking the paint off, but when I took some of the DIYs apart, there was like little chunks that came off, and I was able to peel everything off. And some of these were those plastic coated ones, and when I went to peel off the paint, the plastic coating came off as well. So that's just what I'm using as the styrofoam base. I figured I should explain that. So the first one, we painted a brown, which is a little bit darker than the material we're using, but I just didn't want the bright white to pop through. So we are going to take some brown paper bags and we are going to cut some strips. You could also use brown craft paper, which is a little bit stiffer, but I still think that you could use it. But I have a ton of these brown paper bags in my pantry because they come in like a package of like 100. So when I wanted to buy them once, I bought a ton. I ultimately ended up using 3 bags. They're small bags, and I didn't use quite all of the pieces, but it's going to depend on the size of your pumpkin. So we're basically just cutting some strips here, and then we're going to crumple them up, and then ultimately I wanted them in like a strip, but I did wrinkle them in all different directions because I wanted them to be really wrinkly. So I cut them up and wrinkled a whole pile of them, and then I fired up my hot glue gun. And be careful, I burnt myself initially. I'm going to switch to some finger protectors here in a minute. And I lowered my hot glue gun temp to low. I did not need the high temp. But I'm just putting a thin bead of glue. I don't want the glue to be showing, and I'm just kind of crinkling it up as we go and hot gluing at the top, along the way, and at the bottom, and then I'm going to trim off any excess. And I kind of learned what I liked as I went. I don't know if I can properly explain it to you. I think that's when I burnt myself. And then actually I'm going to stop here in a second and put on another finger protector. I ended up having to go get my lavender oil because the burn was really hurting. But I just kind of kept going. And initially I just kind of went down each of the ribs first, and then like the indentations on the pumpkin, and I went back and filled it in. And I kept not always using the finger protected finger to tap this down. So I got better as we went, but you're going to end up having however many layers you want, and just kind of keep going with it until you're covering like all of the surface. You don't necessarily have to paint your pumpkins first, but I just felt like this way, if anything peeked through, it wouldn't be so like glaring in your face. Initially here where it got smaller, I was doing shorter pieces, but I didn't like that. I would just go top to bottom all the way around, and if that means there's some overlapping, that's okay. At the bottom, I tried to make it a little bit, eventually I realized this, tried to make it a little bit flatter, so I would kind of uncrinkle, I'm just peeling off some hot glue here, uncrinkle the piece at the bottom so that it wouldn't be too bulky down there. So I learned as I went, so I'm trying to describe it best to you so that you can learn from my mistakes and maybe do it a little bit differently. But you can't really go wrong here. Brown paper bags are super, super cheap. I was showing you it finished. At the bottom, I did cut a little circle piece off to kind of smooth out the bottom. It's still a little bit of a wobbly pumpkin, but that's okay. Pumpkins aren't perfect. And then I have a greenery bag that just has leaves and little clippings. I always save those because you never know when you're just going to need a little piece. This is off of some type of vine garland piece that I had picked up at Hobby Lobby on like major clearance a long time ago, and I've used it for so many projects. And then I'm showing you the different wood pieces I have. These are all from Dollar Tree, 3 different kinds, but we're also going to use some other pieces in some of the other ones. So I'm just using these wood pieces for a couple of these stems, and we're going to hot glue a little bit of this greenery And so we're going to be doing different textures on the pumpkins. We're going to be using different things for the stem and the vines or leaves on the pumpkin as well. So I just wanted to give you some different ideas, and I really like how this one came out. I love the neutral. I use a lot of color in my fall decor, but when I was decorating this year, I was like, I need more neutrals because I have tons and tons of color, and it's nice to balance it out with some neutrals. But once again, you could do these in any type of color. All right, so moving on to the next one. This is one of those itty bitty pumpkins. I think they come in like a 3-pack from Dollar Tree. I don't know if it originally was on a clip. I don't know. These pumpkins also have a little, some of them have little indents from when I was peeling the paint off. My fingernails was taking off chunks of the styrofoam, but I kind of liked it because it gave it more texture and made it look more realistic. So if you have just plain styrofoam pumpkins, you might want to ding it up a little bit. I'm going in with some baking soda and some gray acrylic paint. We're going for a little cement look here. Now I do this in addition to something else on another pumpkin coming up. And what I've learned is I always thought like this should clean out of the paintbrush really well because it's baking soda, so warm water, it'll dissolve. I don't know if I don't take enough time in the cleaning process, but I'm from now on using the same paintbrush going forward because it definitely makes it pretty stiff. For all of these, I use a wooden skewer so that I could paint the whole thing at once, and I just stuck it in a jar and weighted it down. But if you don't have that option, just paint the top and then the bottom. If you use the big styrofoam, they're called carvable pumpkins from Dollar Tree. Those are hollow in the inside, so the skewer trick may not work. You just have to paint it, let it dry, paint the rest. This was just a little wood scrap piece. I think it might have been part of a wooden skewer. Again, I save everything. And I thought this would be a perfect little stem for this one, but I wanted to give it some texture. So I'm using this little, I think it's supposed to be like a Cricut tool, but it's from Dollar Tree. I don't have a Cricut or a vinyl machine of any kind, but I bought a lot of the tools because they're handy in crafting. So I'm carving out some lines to give it a little bit of texture, and then I'm using a baby wipe and some antique wax. I know this is a tiny pumpkin, but I still wanted to, to give a little bit of detail to the stem. And then I'm just going to cut a piece of twine. This is bigger than I needed, but I didn't want it to be difficult to tie. And I'm just firing off, or using a lighter to burn off any of the hairs or fuzzies on it. And I'm just tying that around the base of the stem with a little bit of hot glue to secure it. And then I'm going to put some hot glue in the little hole on the pumpkin and push that way down in. And I just hold it for a minute. It doesn't take long for the glue to dry. And then I'm trimming this off and then fraying the twine. It frayed a little bit more than I had wanted, but I just trimmed it down, and in the end, I thought it worked really good. I mean, it's just a tiny pumpkin. This will be a great little kind of filler piece, and it just gave a nice little texture. This is a little brighter than I intended, but you can kind of see. I'll also show this again in the final shot at the end of the video, but I love how that one came out as well. So for this next one, I like that it was a different shape. I didn't really know what I was going to do with this. I had a couple different ideas, but first we're going to paint it. So I painted it with some white, and I used some more of that cream beige color that I had already used, or maybe I'm using it in a future one. I don't remember. These aren't exactly in order, but giving it a base coat. You get the idea. And then I decided I wanted to do a moss pumpkin. So I have the Spanish moss from the Dollar Tree. All right, we all know moss is very messy, okay? Super messy, but I love the natural elements in my decor, and I love the look of the moss. So it's messy. We're gonna go with it. This bag, I use almost the rest of it in this DIY, but I've had it for so long. I've used it for so many DIYs. A lot of times you just need a very little bit. So be very careful with this. Sorry, I didn't even complete a sentence. I am using my finger protectors, going around with hot glue and tapping the moss on. Be very careful you don't burn yourself through it. If you have a low temp on, it may not be as bad. And I'm just pushing, going around, trimming it, adding more. We're going to do the whole thing. By the end, I honestly couldn't remember which side was top or bottom. So I just chose by what I thought looked good when it was all said and done. If you are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out so much. It lets me know that you are enjoying the video. It also lets YouTube know that you're enjoying it, and therefore they are more likely to share my video with others, which of course in turns helps me out. So like it, give it a comment down below, that all that little stuff, helps out us YouTubers. And now once it was all done and I had trimmed it, no, maybe I didn't trim it yet. I think now I'm going to trim it. I was kind of just going around trimming it and then filling in any little holes that I came across, just trying to give it a good look over to make sure we don't have any bald spots. And then I figured this is probably still going to shed a little bit. So one trick I have is I've done this in two of these. I'm going to do it for two of these pumpkins. Is to take some hairspray. This is my DIY hairspray. I don't show you me doing it because I went over to the kitchen sink to do it, so I didn't get hairspray everywhere. And I feel like that just helps kind of hold it in a little bit. And then I have these corn husk pieces. This is in a pack from Hobby Lobby. I bought it last year. The regular price is $5.99. You're going to get it 40 or 50% off right now if you wanted this. And I think it's a fun element to add to fall DIYs. So I'm just gluing a little bunch of them together at the base. And then I'm taking what I decided was the top of my pumpkin and poking in my scissors and just kind of open them a little bit to open it up just a little bit. Depending on how secure you needed this to be, you could pay more attention to that. But this worked really great and it's holding up well. And I put a good amount of hot glue in. The key is to just hold it still while the glue sets. And then I'm just adding in a little bit more glue around the base to kind of help it hold together. I don't go all the way up because I don't want it to be totally stiff, but I did want it to kind of hold together. So I trimmed that down a little bit. I did it a little bit at an angle just because I thought that was cute. And once again, a little bit of hot glue, but I don't want it too tight. And then I've heard people call this pitberry. That might be the proper name. I think at Dollar Tree, the packaging says berry garland. And I thought just a tiny pop of color here. I'm going to poke a little hole with my skewer, make sure it's going to go in there easily. This is wired, so the wire will help poke that in. And a tiny bit of hot glue, rearrange my little curly Q viney piece, and that's it for this pumpkin. I like all of the different textures in this. I think it's just fun to switch things up a little bit. All right, moving on. I don't show you all of the painting, but once again, this one is going to get a base coat in a cream color. We are not going to be covering this whole pumpkin, so I am just trying to make sure I'm doing a really good job getting in all of the little divots and grooves. And as you can see, this one has lots of texture on it. Again, I think that gives it more of a realistic look. And then I'm dry brushing in a little bit of a darker shade with a stencil brush, and I'm kind of holding the bristles together so it really just stays in the grooves. Originally, I wasn't going to do any of this texture and depth on here because we're going to add something else, but I love that I did this. It really just gave like a layered effect. So I'm also going in again with another darker color, just going over it a little bit more. And then the real plan for this pumpkin was to use this raffia ribbon, which actually was sent to me by Kendra in a Christmas in July Craft My Friend's Stash collab that we did together. She then sent this to me, and I obviously still have a lot of it left. So what I'm doing is just a little dab of hot glue at the top, and we're going to wrap it all the way around inside each of the grooves, the ribs, I think they're called, of the pumpkin, but each of the indentations. But I didn't want to put glue along the sides because I was afraid you'd see it. So I'm just holding it tight and hot gluing at the top and the bottom. And this way it's not pulled taut across. It like goes down in where the pumpkin curves down at the top and the bottom. So I hope that makes sense. And I'm just holding it and then slightly turning it, going to the one on the right. And we're just going to go all the way around doing the same thing. Speeding this up for you because now you get it. But I wanted to slow it down at the beginning so you could kind of see how I was doing that. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Leanne. I enjoy sharing budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel. And if you are not yet subscribed, I would love it if you did that. It is free to you. It is just like following on like other like social media platforms where you just follow a page. And if you subscribe and turn on the notification bell, my videos are more likely to show up in your subscription feed. Well, they're supposed to show up in your subscription feed if you do that. And then you won't miss out on my future videos, and I would love it if you would stick around and check out my other videos. All right, so once that's all done and secured, I pulled out some more leaves from the bag of floral trash, you could say. This is stuff that would just be thrown away. I'm trimming off some frayed edges, and then we're just going to glue this down to the center. And I kind of wanted to, like, I could have cut these apart, I suppose, but I overlapped them a little bit there, and then just taking another one of those stumps, deciding which end I wanted to go down, and put that in the center. And that is it for this one. I think this one is really fun, and I hope that you do too. Make sure down in the comments you let me know which one of these is your favorite. I think I've got one more to go here, and this one's fun. Okay, so this is another one that has been DIY'd, torn apart. You can see the size of the hole at the top of this, but have no fear, we're gonna still use this and make it work. So once again, going in with a base coat just to give us, you know, that base layer. Now, this is the color we're going to use in the end, but we're going to be doing some good old-fashioned grade school type paper mache. And from what I remember and what I've read, it's helpful to paint the base layer unless you're like paper macheing the whole thing, which we're not. So I got this idea from seeing some decor that had those, like, you know, those like pumpkins and gourds that are really textured and they have like the warts on them. I wanted to make some warty pumpkins. So I'm mixing up some flour and water, and some recommendations say to add salt to prevent molding. So I just did that. I made way more than I needed. I believe it's 2 parts to 1 part flour and water, but I'll include a link down below for you. Maybe that'll help you out. And then I just cut some white strips of like white craft paper that I had. You could also use tissue paper or craft paper. Brown paper bags would probably work. I wanted something that would be easy to paint over. And I'm just dipping them in our water and flour mixture. It got a little runny, so I was dabbing up some of that so it didn't drip all over. And I'm crumpling it up and making our little warts. I did some big, some small. I didn't put any in the bottom because I felt like that wasn't necessary. If I were to do this again, I would make more of them and layer some of them so that they were a little bit bigger. So I'm just telling you that now. So if you want to do that, you can keep this in mind, or if you're going to do this DIY, you can keep that in mind. So we're just going to keep going and going, and I'm trying to put them in different places. I'm trying to not be purposeful or symmetrical with this. I'm really wanting it to look more natural. So that's kind of my goal with this one, because I saw a picture of, or I saw a gourd decor piece, and I was like, I really like that, but I gotta be able to make it myself. So I saw a couple other ideas online of how to do it, but this didn't require me to buy anything because I already had flour and water. So you can buy like paper mache material, I believe, but I don't know. This is how I paper macheed when I was a kid. Okay. So we're going to get all those on there. You're going to let this dry overnight. This does take a good little bit to dry. I don't really know how long. I did it at night, so mine dried overnight. And of course, the flour mixture leaves like a white residue as well. So now we're going to go in and give this a good coat of paint. We need to get around all of the little warts. And but at the end, I felt like it needed a little bit more texture. I didn't like the seam that you can see across the middle. That doesn't look high end to me. And I also thought those pumpkins are typically pretty textured in addition to the warts. So I did more of the baking soda and paint technique. And I did use a good amount of baking soda, probably more than I needed. But I'm just dabbing this on, and we're going to give this texture all over and also make sure we get the good paint coverage around I keep calling them warts because I think that's what they are, but it sounds so gross to say that. The bumps, but you want to make sure you can't see any of the white paper from what we made the warts out of. So covered up really good. So this was actually done the previous night when I first did the pumpkin, but I took some leftover pieces of the brown paper bag, and I'm going to make a paper mache stem as well. So this took a lot longer to dry, but I twisted it, crumpled it, made the bottom part a little bit more like flat, so I had a surface to glue with. And this did not dry overnight. I put it out on my patio, and that helped it dry a little bit more. And then when I was doing the final part, it was still a little bit soft in places. Like right here, it's dry, but it's a little bit soft. But I just didn't have any more time to wait. It will eventually harden. And then I wanted to paint it. So I'm going in with more of these beigey brownie colors that I've been using throughout this whole video, and I'm heating it with my heat gun to dry it down. Not heating it, drying it with my heat gun. And then I'm dry brushing a couple other colors. I just wanted to give it some dimensions. This looks like one of those really rusticy, like, I don't know. Have you seen pumpkins that have these kind of stems on them? I love those. I love picking up like real pumpkins that have like a really like curved and textured stem. I just think it's really cool. So that's what I was going with. It kind of looks almost like the original color of the brown paper bag, but I just went for some different layered colors to give it a little bit of dimension. So then I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, it's all dry. What do I want to do? I like the stem on here. This is good, but I want to add something else. So we're going to go in with a little bit more of that Spanish moss, and I'm just putting a little bit of that around. This will also help fill in that hole because it had a pretty big hole. And then I wanted to add some other textures. So I'm taking some raffia and I'm wetting it. I just have a bowl with like a tiny, tiny bit of water in this, wrapping it around a paintbrush and drying it with my heat gun. I have seen my friend Kendra, I keep talking about her, hey Kendra, I've seen her do this and it's really neat. It just gives it a little bit of a curl to it, and I'm just hot gluing that in there, and I did a few pieces of that. And I keep saying the same words, but lots of texture and dimension to this. And I had so much fun with these DIYs, and I hope that you are enjoying this. So I'm going to put a ton of hot glue on the bottom of our stem. I knew the whole thing wouldn't be touching something, so I just put hot glue on everything to make sure we had enough surface contact. I'm pushing down at the base with my fingers because, like I said, this thing was a little bit soft still. It wasn't fully dry. And that's how this one came out. The final shot won't be as bright. I'm sorry these came out. I'm going to, I don't know, try to fix it. So maybe it's not bright for you now. I'm going to go back and try to fix that. But I love how these came out. Let me know which one of these is your favorite. If you like this video, once again, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. That helps me out so very much. All right, so for this first one, we're taking something that I previously DIY'd. We're going to do that a couple times in this video, but that's just because I do a lot of DIYs and, you know, there's only room for so many items in my home. So this is one of those chalkboard signs from Dollar Tree. It would just be a plain chalkboard background with a like natural wood frame. And I just kind of took everything apart and we're going to redo it. So I'm going to give the chalkboard a couple coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color white. And you could, of course, use something similar, another frame, another sign, either from the Dollar Tree or that you've thrifted or that you have in your decor stash that you just don't really like anymore. That's a great way to find items to DIY. And I'm just using some painter's tape, trying really hard to get close to the edge. And we're going to paint off so I can do the frame again as well. Once again, this is all going to depend on what you're working with. So I'm mixing these two blues together. They were just in my stash. And I'm trying to make a color to match window clings. We're going to use a set of window clings from the Dollar Tree. This is from a previous year. And we're going to use them in several of the DIYs. But even the DIYs that are not using the window clings, we're going to try to go with the same color scheme throughout. This is not colors that I typically use in my home, but I think it's really pretty. But remember that you can take this to like your style. If you find different window clings and you have different, colors and all of that, by all means, go with what works for your home. So anyways, I matched the blue, painted everything with that. And now we're going to dry brush with a gray and tan color. I did all of these DIYs kind of together, but some of the clips are a little bit out of order. So I'll show you the color that I'm using to dry brush here because I'm going to use that throughout the video. So I'm just dry brushing that across the whole thing. And then this is a wood sticker. I don't remember if this is from, no, this one's not a sticker. Maybe it used to be a sticker. I don't know. I've used a couple of these. You can get them at Dollar Tree. You can get some at Hobby Lobby. I picked some up at Target Dollar Spot like years ago. So I'm just painting that in orange. And then this is the window cling that I'm using for this sign. And I'm just trying to figure out the placement with the pumpkin because I wanted that to be down at the corner. We're going to use some Mod Podge to secure our window cling, and I'm just doing the top and then the bottom. I'm just trying to not have too much Mod Podge, smooth it out, and make sure there's no air bubbles. And this adheres really quick and easy, and no problems there. So I just let it set for a minute to get tacky before I did the top coat because I didn't want it to just be moving around. So I do recommend that. And you can tell it's not totally centered top to bottom, but it's going to work. I ultimately decided to put my pumpkin off to the side. I realized it doesn't have to be right on the frame. It can be hanging off the edge. So I'm just going to put down a little bit of hot glue in the corner here to attach that. And this window cling, of course, fit perfectly on this sign, but there are so many adorable window clings. Dollar Tree has them. Dollar General has them for just $1. And Walmart has some, I think, for 98 cents. Anyways, here is the first one, and you're getting a glimpse of the color scheme for the video. And remember, if you're not into the bright colors, you can certainly change it up to fit your style. For this next one, I'm using this Christmas ornament that I picked up at the Dollar General. It was originally $1. I probably paid like 10 cents, probably no more than 25 cents. I like to pick things up at the end of the season. Dollar General has great clearance. You can often get things for like 90% off, and I can just do whatever I want with it. So that's what we're doing. I painted that with white. I did a couple of coats, and we're once again dry brushing with this color that I had mixed to kind of match the border on the window clings, but once again, I'll show you that at some point here. And then I pulled off I wanted to just, I was hoping to pull off the staples, but I ended up cutting off the twine and got the staples out using something else. So I'm going to reuse that twine. It just gave me not much to work with because it was a lot shorter, but I could have used another piece, but I don't know, I just reused it. We're reusing the beads too. So we're going to paint one of them in blue, and I'm just using my heat gun to dry in between. It did take a couple of coats, but it did work. And when I got to the orange one, I'll show you a little tip because I was not having as good a coverage. I thought the orange over the red would be pretty good because like they're in the same family, but I could tell it was going to be too dark and it was going to take too many coats, and it was going to be like a deeper orange. So I just coated it with some white and then dried it and then went back in with some orange, a couple coats, and that was perfect. So not spending a lot on these DIYs, just reusing the items I already had. Here's another window cling. The window clings have like, sometimes like a dozen different window clings in there of all different shapes and sizes. So I'm adding this one on. And then that little truck came from a pack that had maybe like, I don't know, I want to say like 12 maybe of those little trucks from Hobby Lobby. They do have them again this year. And it had the cute little, like the color of the truck was like maroon, which I felt like matched the window cling. So once again, Mod Podge, below and above, and just putting across the whole thing so that the painted surface has the same finish. And then I'm just hot gluing on our little truck. And I thought it was cute, even though the truck has pumpkins in the back, but the window cling says, "Hayride this way." Anyways, I thought it was cute and I thought it went. So I'm just restringing these beads on, and that's just tying in more of that blue and orange. And I didn't have a lot of twine left to work with because, like I said, I kind of cut it off there. And so I just hot glued it on the back to be more secure. You can put a staple, and you could, of course, use an additional bigger piece of twine. But I just did a little bit of hot glue for what I'm using this for. I feel like that would be just fine. And that is all for this DIY. I'll show you at the end them all together. I like how they all coordinate. I don't do a lot of that in my DIYs, but I thought it would be fun for this go around. All right, up next is a pumpkin sign from the Dollar Tree that I have redone at least once. So I've seen similar things like this at the Dollar Tree still. So find a sign and redo it. We're going to paint the pumpkin itself white. Once again, I'm doing a lot of white. Actually, I think I'm doing all white backgrounds here because with the window clings, you can see through them. And I just felt like it would pop the best. And also the clear border on the window cling would kind of blend in well with the white. And then I'm going to take that blue paint and paint the base. This, I don't even know what color this base was originally, but I do this a lot because, like I said, I make a lot of DIYs for my channel, and I like to change up my decor. So sometimes I'm just like, I'm kind of bored with this. Let me take it apart and redo it. But these are definitely, you can definitely find items currently like in the Dollar Tree or Dollar General that you can make over and do something similar with. But clearance and thrifted finds are also great. Here's another, this one I think is a sticker, and I'm painting it orange just to be, so that the orange shade will match the rest. And then here's the gray that I'm doing. I've got like a khaki and the pewter gray. And you can see I was trying to match the border around the window clings. And so I'm just mixing a little bit of that in a dish. This was when I first mixed it. And then I'd used it already, as you saw in the previous DIYs. So I was trying to keep each DIY together, but that made some of my clips out of order. So for this, I'm just using this to paint the stem. That'll take a couple of coats. And then I am also going to dry brush across the pumpkin, and I'm kind of just going around the edges just to kind of highlight them. I feel like it makes it look a little bit nicer because sometimes the edges just look so raw. And so I'm just using a little bit around the edge, and then I'm going to do some very light lines on the surface going in the same direction as like the curves of the pumpkin to give it a little bit more dimension. Not that it's going to look like a real pumpkin, but I think you get what I'm saying. Sorry for the light changing here too. Just I was working on things at different times of the day, and so I had the same light on, but the natural light was different, so it just changed a little bit. As you can see on these window clings, I did like one side at a time and just kind of held it still. They will slip around a little bit with the Mod Podge, so I just wanted to keep it in place. So yeah, and then let it dry a little bit before you go ahead and do the top coat. And as you saw earlier, I was kind of placing the pumpkin down, so I knew kind of where I wanted to place this window cling. And as you can see, this one was a sticker, but I did add additional hot glue just to make sure that it stayed in place. And I thought this added another pop of orange to this one, and it kind of helped. I don't know. I thought it was just cute to kind of have like a three-dimensional piece here. I actually even almost made it more three-dimensional by putting a little piece behind it, but I didn't. And then I have this berry garland from the Dollar Tree. I had some of this in my stash, and it was perfect because it has that maroon color and it has the orange. I just wrapped it around the stem of our pumpkin, and I'm just going to use a paintbrush handle to make our little curly cues. And I'm not gluing this at all. I'm just twisting it to help it stay on. There's really no concern for me. If you wanted to, you could certainly put a little dab of hot glue at the top. And then where I had cut it, the wire and the paper kind of that was on it was coming off. And so I just used a little bit of hot glue and my finger protectors to kind of wrap it back around to cover up the wire. So I wanted to show that to you because that may happen to you if you're cutting that garland as well. And another fun and easy one. These are all really like fairly quick to do. The biggest thing is just letting paint dry. So this is another sign that I had previously redone. And I think it was a sign from the Dollar Tree, and any little boxy square sign or your window clings that you have is obviously going to determine the size that you need. Now this one may not actually use a window cling. I don't think it does, but I am going to make it coordinate. So I painted it white, and once again we're dry brushing with that gray beige color just lightly, just to make it not look so flat. And then I do go around the edges and do the same thing around all of the sides. I had a spot there that got a little bit too thick, but we're going to end up covering it up, so it's just fine. These are a word pack from the Dollar Tree. I picked them up last year. I think they had them again this year. You're going to see another one that I used from here as well, but I painted that in the blue. I think those word packs came in a set of like 6. It was a really good deal. And then I have one of those pumpkin ornament cutouts from the Dollar Tree. And I've got this pumpkin fabric also from the Dollar Tree that I've had for a while. You can see I've used bits and pieces of it. And I'm Mod Podging that on. I thought I might need to do like the iron-on method, where you let the Mod Podge dry, put the fabric on, and then iron on to reactivate the Mod Podge. But I had no problems with wrinkling whatsoever, probably because it's such a small piece. And I put a hefty coat of Mod Podge on top of it, making sure to go all the way to the edges, put a pretty thick coat, and then let that dry thoroughly. Now I wanted to try the sandpaper trick. I didn't know if it was going to work with fabric, where you sand away. You don't want to pull up, and you just get a nice edge here. This worked great. It would have been way better if I had a sanding block, but I do now. I've picked one up since, but I had not found one in forever at the Dollar Tree. They'd been out of them, so my sandpaper kept dripping, but this worked great. Got a nice clean edge for the fabric, and it did Near like the stem, I just used my scissors to cut a little slit so I could get in there better. You could easily just cut around it with like a sharp cutting tool, a knife of some kind. You could try to do with scissors. I thought it might be a little bit hard up at the top, but as you can see, it did work. My sandpaper got destroyed. Sanding block would be much easier. So now we're just going to attach our pieces. I knew that I was going to be covering up that big splotch that I accidentally got on there, so I didn't worry about it. And we're just going to use some hot glue to secure these to the sign. You could also use another type of glue if you wanted something that to make sure it lasted really well. I feel like hot glue works pretty well. On this, I had a little bit of trouble just because it took me a while to get on all of the spaces. So some of the hot glue had hardened a little bit. But so far, I mean, it's still on there, but you could use some super glue gel or something like that. As I've already explained, like to take apart my DIYs after a year or two. So I'm fine with a hot glue, but feel free to use another glue to be a little bit more secure. And I love how this one came out as well. I think the fabric was a fun touch. So now I have a mason jar sign. This is from the Dollar General. Once again, I showed you it has a $1 sticker on there, but I know I paid less than that because that's when I pick them up. And the little mason jar lid was screwed on and glued on. So I took out the screws and then used a little like putty tool to pop that off. And I wanted to completely take off this paper. You don't have to do that. You could paint over it, or if you're just putting paper on top, you can do that. But if you ever want to take the paper off of these like MDF signs, all you have to do is take a damp paper towel and let it sit on there for a little while and peel it off and scrape it off. And you may have to do that a couple times because there's like a couple layers. There's almost like a plasticky coating. And then there's like the paper and then there's like the glue. But it does come off if that's the route you want to take. And then I just painted that with a Waverly chalk paint, and then I'm dry brushing again. So here I'm going to show you, I did too much there, and I just tried to keep going with it, and I was like, I am not going to like this. So I made sure it was fully dry because I didn't want to smear it, and then I went in with a little bit of white paint in those areas and let that fully dry, and then I went back and dry brushed again. So as you can see, you can't even notice my boo-boos from before. Wow, that was a tongue twister. And I'm again highlighting the edges. I'm also kind of doing like the curves at the top and the bottom, just trying to kind of, I don't know, go with the shape of a mason jar. So the mason jar lid, I thought would be fun to paint that pretty blue. And I did do a couple of coats. Just make sure that you let it dry thoroughly in between, otherwise it'll just peel back up off of the metal. And then you see me using my heat gun a lot. That is always linked down in my description box if you're interested. I used to just use my hairdryer. And then eventually my hairdryer, like the heating element of it broke. And since I don't use a hairdryer for my hair, it didn't make sense to buy another hairdryer. I just bought the heat gun. Anyways, and then I just put some Mod Podge on that as well to make sure that that was all sealed in. Here is the orange I've been using, Harvest Orange by Apple Barrel. And I'm just going to paint this. This is another one of those words from the pack I was talking to you about from the Dollar Tree. Hobby Lobby has different like wood words as well. And we're just going to give that a couple coats. And now we're going to take some lightweight spackling. We're taking one of these leaf ornaments from the Dollar Tree, and I'm filling in the hole. I did not fill the hole in from the pumpkin we saw earlier because I was using fabric, but this one I'm going to paint. So just make sure that you let that spackling dry and then sand it down. And I was just showing you, I took that gray paint that we had mixed and I added a little bit of water to it. Not quite enough to make it like a stain, but I didn't want it to be as thick. I wanted there to be a little bit of the wood grain coming through, which might be hard to pick up on camera, but I just gave that one good coat, and I thought that would be a pretty color. So now we're going to attach our mason jar lid back on. I'm just using the little screws that was on it originally. This little screwdriver set is from Dollar Tree, and it is very, very handy for DIYs and just for life. And once again, we're using some hot glue. The super glue gel might be helpful for you as well, once again with the words, just because it can be hard to get on all the spots. I just kind of emphasize like the bigger openings and didn't worry about every little bit and piece. And I think, yeah, that is it for this one. I loved how these came out. I had fun doing something a little bit different with the colors that was outside of my norm. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you like the color combo. I feel like the blue and orange is kind of big this year anyway, but this is how they all came out. All right, so first up, we're going to start with a sign that I picked up from Dollar General. I already took the sticker off, but I know I picked it up on clearance. It was originally $1 and I paid less than that. So I don't remember exactly what I paid, but I liked this wood trim, so I'm taping that off with some painter's tape, and I'm just showing you how I'm using, my head keeps getting in the way a lot in this, but anyways, I'm showing you how I'm using this little scraper tool from the Dollar Tree to just kind of push that up along the edge. And we're going to use some Waverly chalk paint in the color Pumpkin. Now, you can use any sign. You can use something you picked up from the Dollar Tree, thrift store, something around your house that you just don't like anymore. I love doing that. When you kind of get bored with your decor, instead of getting rid of it, just redo it. We're also going to use the same colors for all three of these DIYs. I'm using pumpkin and white. And that is just because I wanted them all to match and go together, but you can, of course, do whatever colors you want. So this took a couple coats of paint. I am using my heat gun in between to dry the paint. And after 2 coats, I realized that the lettering was slightly raised. You can't really see in here how it was raised, but it was. And that happens a lot with signs. So I'm just going over it with some sandpaper. I'm using a sanding block for the force, but I wrapped it with a piece of sandpaper because I knew there was going to get some paint on it and I didn't want to get paint all over my brand new sanding block. So we're just going to sand this down a little bit, wipe off all of the dust, and then I did another 2 coats. So it would not have taken as much if I had done that from the beginning. I was trying to find shortcuts and it didn't totally work. So pardon my head, my face, my glasses that keep getting in the way. I edited a lot of that footage out, but that always makes the camera go out of focus for a moment. But I was doing some up close and personal stuff. So, all right, here are the stencils. These are some self-adhesive stencils from the Dollar Tree in their fall area. You can tell by the tag. And I actually did not find these at my store, but my dear friend Kendra from Late Night Creations, if you don't know her channel, you should check her out. She didn't find them in her store either, so she ordered some online and ended up with a bunch of them, and so she sent them to me, which was super sweet of her, and so I was excited to give them a try. I have used the self-adhesive stencils from there before, but I have not seen these before. There were so many different varieties, 4 or 5 different sheets with multiple different ones in there. So I'm going to give you my review. As you can see here, I'm leaving some of the struggle in to let you know. I want to be real with you. Like, these are really, really sticky, which is cool, because that helps without any, helps not having any bleed through. But they were really hard to put down, and there was I was afraid there was air bubbles. And this is the point with this next one. I decided to put 2 of them on here. The little cutouts from the letters were sticking to it. And I was literally at this point thinking, okay, I'm going to just post on my community tab. There's not going to be a video today. I'm just going to scrap this whole thing. There's no way this is going to work. But it did. So we're going to go in with some Waverly chalk paint in the color white. I'm using my little pouncer brush. Took a lot of the paint off on the paper towel to make sure I didn't have too much. And we're just going to cover the whole, both of the stencils here. We are not doing DIYs with an incredible amount of detail. They're pretty simple. These are quick and easy DIYs that you can put together. I did all of these in an afternoon. So yeah, the stencils worked great, but they were not easy to handle. But I was at this point, I was just keep going. We're just going to do it. We're just going to do it. We're just going to see, and then I'm going to take them off, and then I'm going to sand this down and start over again. That was pretty much what I was convinced was going to happen. If you want a little bit thicker coverage, let it dry for just a moment and then go back over and add a little bit more paint. I wouldn't let them dry too much. The idea of putting Mod Podge down, I know, is good, but these things were so sticky, I was afraid to put anything down. But look, it came off and it was fine. I was also convinced that I was going to tear apart this stencil, pulling it off, and it was going to rip and I'd never be able to use it again. But they were totally fine. So they're superpower ones. So give them a try. If you don't have a Cricut or you don't have other fancy tools to use for your DIYs, stencils are great. And these ones from the Dollar Tree, honestly, even if you only got one use out of them, I think they would still be great. But they worked. So I went in with a little paintbrush and touched up. The stencils did take off a little bit of the paint, but I think that's because it was dry but not set, if you know what I mean. I was going through this so fast. That did not happen on all of the DIYs, but I just touched up with a little paint, and I put one of these burlap flowers on it from the Dollar Tree, And I thought this was super cute. So this is kind of the theme we're going for with these DIYs, but once again, switch it up to whatever colors and feels that you like. But yeah, I was pleased with how this one came out. All right, so this next one is a sign from Hobby Lobby. I have picked several of these up over the last couple of years. They're like originally $1.99, and I usually pay like 80 cents or less for them. But we're going to sand it down. I learned from my lesson, we're like, okay, we're going to sand from the beginning, clean up my dusty mess. I'm also going to take a baby wipe and just get off all of the dust here. You can see that on the baby wipe. And I also am going to just dry it down because I didn't want to wait for it to dry, and I didn't want to paint it while it was wet. So we're going to just move right along. Once again, Pumpkin by Waverly. I'm going to do the front, the sides, the back. I did the back because it was navy blue, and so it didn't really match at all. I did not do a double-sided sign, although I could have. And this took 3 coats all together. And once again, I used my heat gun to dry in between. With signs too, to do a little makeover on them, you can also just put some scrapbook paper. That's even quicker. But I really wanted to use this Pumpkin by Waverly. I use that a lot in my house, so everything kind of matches each other, my different DIYs. If you're new here, I want to welcome you. My name is Leanne, and I enjoy sharing budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel. And if you're new, I hope that you consider subscribing to my channel and make sure your notification bell is turned on. All right, so once this got a couple coats, we're pulling out another stencil. This was from a separate pack, but it was the same type of stencils from Dollar Tree. Thought this was cute, would be cute in the kitchen on a tiered tray. And once again, we're just going in with some white paint. This one was a lot easier to put on than the other ones. So I think it definitely depends on the intricacy of the font and all of that. But I didn't have bleed through on any of them whatsoever, and I didn't rip and destroy any stencil. I frankly could not believe this. I did pull off a tiny bit of paint there. Once again, let your paint not just dry. There's like it curing or setting that makes a difference. I'm going in with this burlap ribbon because I wanted a little bit of detail. So I'm just making a bow. I just crisscrossed it and then tied the center with a piece of twine because I felt like it would be too bulky if I actually used that burlap ribbon itself to tie the bow. So just crossed it, kind of like just cross it over. I didn't really show that, but I think you know what I mean. And I'm just going to fluff it, trim down the edges. I did do the lighter a little bit on this, mainly because I wanted the ends to not fray, so I was hoping that that would do the trick. And I'm just kind of curling it, bending it, trimming it. And we're just going to put this on the top. I thought about putting it around the border of it, but this is what I went for. So like I said, these DIYs today don't have a ton of detail. I like detail, but sometimes I also just like simple, and I kind of wanted to just show you some really quick ideas. These are things that don't have to take very long at all. And yeah, that was it for this one. So I thought that was fun as well. And well, that one loop could be fluffed a little bit more. I didn't notice that, but it looks pretty good. It actually kind of looks like a pumpkin to me, which is cute. Speaking of pumpkins, I've got these wood cutouts. This is from Hobby Lobby, $1.99 for 12. You're going to pay 40 to 50% less than that. Dollar Tree has them as well, but these ones are actually cheaper and they don't have a hole in them. So they are a nice wood piece, and the paint takes to this a lot well. One coat, dries quick. I did both sides. So if you were to do any of these DIYs, if you just picked up the wood blank signs that Dollar Tree seems to be carrying a lot of, that would be probably easier. They're going to dry or take less coats of paint and everything. But I just wanted to use things that I had in my stash, so that's what I did. And then I'm going in with a little bit of burnt umber from Apple Barrel just to paint the stem of our pumpkin. And I didn't want to, again, do a ton of detail here, but I did want to, I didn't want to paint the whole thing orange, so we're going to just paint both the front and the back of the stem. I, again, didn't do a double-sided sign, but I wanted it to just look finished from the back. If you put this on a tier tray or something like that, then it would just kind of look complete. I am doing a tiny, tiny bit of dry brushing. This brush is not really the best one for dry brushing, but it already had paint on it. So I just dabbed some paint off of it, and I just did a little bit around the edges to make it stand out a little bit more, and I did do that on both sides as well. I just wanted to kind of highlight it. And then I left that in for you. I got a little bit of paint on there, went back over with the orange paint. You'll never know the difference. While I had my burnt umber out, I pulled out a tumbling tower block and gave that a coat. I didn't water it down or anything, but I painted it and then wiped it off. It just made it dry quicker, and it was plenty dark, so it's kind of like a stain. I just really did it because it dried quicker. But we're going to use that piece as a, to make a stand, to make this pumpkin into a stand rather. So I just did all of the sides to that. And unlike the antique wax, the glue will not have trouble sticking with the paint. So that is another upside to doing it that way. So more stencils that Kendra sent me. Thank you so much, Kendra. These were so fun. It was such a pleasant surprise when I found these in my mailbox. She is very sweet and very talented. Like I said, if you don't know her, go find her, check her out. I'll have her channel linked for you. This one, the stencil just goes so much to the edge that I just put some painter's tape to cover up my pumpkin. I should have done that on the other ones because that was part of why I had to touch up paint, was because of that. So this one I didn't have to do any touch up. And once again, just going in with the Waverly chalk paint in the color white. I almost used the color moss. I love the orange and green together, but I wanted a little bit more neutral, even though orange isn't neutral, but I hope that makes sense. So peeling that off. I did not clean these stencils. I usually do, but they were just kind of fragile. I just let the paint dry on them. I might go back and try to wipe them down, but I just peeled them off, and super cute. These have great designs, great sayings. Yeah, I really liked these stencils, even though they were a little difficult to use at times. I'm doing a simple little shoestring bow with some twine. I didn't want to do, again, a lot of details. Sorry for my repeating myself, but I wanted to do a little bit. So this clip here is really funny. I accidentally recorded it in slow motion, so it was like a 16-minute clip. So I sped it up a lot, so you can't tell, but like the slow motion also alters the lighting a lot in the camera. So if this clip here looks a little bit funny, that's why. I couldn't believe I recorded it in slow motion. It takes up so much storage space. All right, just a little hot glue to put the bow on and a little hot glue to put our tumbling tower block on the back. I did it at an angle so that it leaned back a little bit from the front. And this one is really cute as well. Great for a tiered tray. These are so quick and simple to do. Let me know, have you seen these stencils at your Dollar Tree? If not, you can find some at Hobby Lobby or Dollar General, or you can order them online. All right, so we've got just 2 DIYs today, and they're all both pretty easy. We've got these yard stakes from the Dollar Tree. I picked up 3 of them in these coordinating colors that I thought looked like candy corn, and I thought that was fun. Let me tell you, they make these a little bit better than they used to. So I've never had problems pulling the stakes off before, but I struggled. So I'm going to share with you this part just so that you're kind of aware. I used my heat gun to try to soften whatever glue was there. It probably really just softened the stick itself, but be careful because that will also make the metal hot. And I'm also continuously hitting the camera, but I got it off, but you can see there's one little hole at the top, and I just was trying to bend the metal back over it to cover it up. The white one, I broke off the stick at the bottom, which was great. So, and this comes in handy later. I'll show you. So just bent it back and forth. That came off. Now attaching these. In my mind, this was going to be super easy. I knew I needed to use E6000 or more like a stronger glue, but I struggled with this. So I cut out a lot of this for you, but I did want to show you the struggle. I'm sorry if you can hear a dog barking. I am clinging to this beautiful fall weather we have, and I'm doing my voiceover out on my porch. So the wind chimes are going off and the dogs are barking. So I tried using a little bit of hot glue for the immediate hold, but it was useless on the metal. I tried clipping this to let the glue dry. It just wasn't working. So I'm using a baby wipe to not glue my hand to anything. And getting off what I could, and we're going at it again. I'm kind of bending up the leaf and the curlicue here to have another space for contact because that's kind of the biggest problem here. And I struggled again. I didn't want glue to seep out, so I put a paper towel down, which really didn't make sense because that would have just stuck to that. Anyways, put my tote of stuff on top of it. Finally, it worked, but it needed more stability, so I added the tumbling tower blocks underneath the stem with some more E6000. Oh my goodness, the dogs are going crazy. that ended up working out pretty good. Okay, so moving on to the base for this little piece is I picked up this bucket at Dollar General. The handle was broken, but it was also 50% off because it was their spring and summer stuff. So it was only $4. And I'm just using some E6000 and letting the weight of the bucket be what holds it into place. And we're fixing the handle. Now I like the black and I use a lot of black, but I felt like it was too harsh. Especially with what I was using it with. I didn't want it to look Halloween-like because I don't decorate or do Halloween. So I'm using my chippy brush and the white paint that I mixed there, you'll see for the next DIY. I'm just using that because I already had it mixed. And I'm doing a few layers of a heavy dry brush until I got the coverage that I wanted, but it's easier to add more than to try to take it off. You really can't. So I also did the inside. I probably didn't need to do the whole inside, but I kind of got on a roll and I had the paint mixed. So I'm using some floral foam. This I picked up at a thrift store on vacation for $1, which 25 cents cheaper than the dollar store. So that was great. You can see the hot glue was like shrinking up the plastic, but I didn't need like a forever hold. So that was adequate, but I thought it would work better if the blocks were still like attached. We're out on the porch. So the lighting isn't great and the camera work isn't great because I didn't have my tripod and I was trying to do all this one-handed. But in essence, I'm using something to weight it down. I end up pulling them out. I'm going to load up some plastic bags around the base, then put the rocks in, and then put in some pine cones. These are very porky pine cones, but they're from my yard and I've been collecting them and I use them on my porch. But while I was doing this, I decided the sign was too tall. I went to the garage, tried to find something to trim down the stake, very unsuccessfully, and ultimately it just broke off. So I was trying to figure out a way to cut it. These stakes are so thick. You might have a tool that you can do that with, but I did not know of one. So I'm using the white one from earlier, and my thought was to attach it with the tumbling tower blocks. And then I had a really bad brain moment where I was going to put more tumbling tower blocks on top, but they were just falling all over the place. I'm like, let me put this on to weight it down. Oh no, they're falling over. And then the E6000, which is scary glue to me, is getting all over everything. I'm trying to tape them down. Let me just tell you, this is a very easy DIY. I decided to leave a little bit of audio in here for your pleasure.
Oh my goodness gracious.
So at this point, I'm feeling pretty desperate. I'm afraid I'm going to glue myself to something. I was like, at this point, I'm like, just go all in. Just do it. We'll worry about your hands afterwards. So I cut off some ribbon using some tumbling tower blocks to push that down. I ended up putting a second piece of ribbon over to absorb some of the extra glue and taping it with some painter's tape. Then we're going to weight it down, and this ended up working. Here is how it came out. And in the end, I really loved how it came out. I just could have saved myself by doing things a little bit, save myself some frustration by doing it a little bit differently. So for the next DIY, we're gonna paint some things to redo my wreath. So I'm just mixing up some colors. I'm wanting it to coordinate with the stake sign that we just did. So I'm doing a white, orange, and yellow, just using colors I have on hand. And the white, I kind of wanted to dirty it up a little bit or soften it up a little bit, not like a true off-white. Wow, I should have done this voiceover outside earlier in the day. It seems like there's lots of noises out here. Okay, so I picked up these pumpkin clips from Dollar Tree. I picked up 3 packs of them, and we're going to paint them. This is before I attached the white stake to the pumpkin stack outside. So I'm using that to clip my pumpkins to while they dry, and this way I could just do the whole thing. And I'm just going to do 3 of them yellow, 3 of them orange, and 3 of them white. I could have left the white alone, but I just wanted to paint it because apparently I had nothing better to do with my time. I did want to just show you, some of them have this little like plastic piece sticking off the stem, and I just would trim those up, trim off any extra like glue strings and stuff. But other than that, just painting them. I did not seal these or anything. I know it's not going to last forever because my porch gets a ton of sun anyway. And then I'm pulling this letter P. I already had this in my stash. I've had this for like 10 years. I've painted it probably, I don't know, half a dozen times. and I gave it a coat with the white, and then I'm just using my pouncer brush with the yellow and orange, making some dots. I got a little bit of orange in it, so I had to go back in with like more yellow. I did paint the back of it as well, just to make sure you couldn't see it through my door, because the door that this goes on is a glass door. And I just wanted to look clean. I thought about doing stripes, but the polka dots seemed fun. I don't always do whimsical, but my front porch was definitely a little bit more of that vibe or feel. I don't really like the word vibe. Anyways, I'm hot gluing a piece of floral wire down with a popsicle stick so that I can attach this to the wreath. I'm clipping off the twine. This is the wreath we're using. It's a grapevine wreath from Hobby Lobby, and this is like the third time I've done something with it. All I had done was wrap the twine around those stars for the summer, so there's no glue involved. And these I'm just clipping on, trying to find good pieces of the grapevine to clip them onto. And again, I'm holding the camera here, so I do apologize for the camera work, but these were so simple, it didn't seem worth the effort of like setting up a whole thing. And now I'm just using the floral wire to attach the P, and then tucking the ends in back into the wreath so it didn't scratch my door. But yeah. And then I had these little cornstalk pieces from Hobby Lobby. They come in a bag. I'll probably be using them for quite some time now. But I am just going to tuck those in different pieces for a little bit of added texture. And here is how my wreath came out. I was pleased with it. I do feel like I need to fix one of those pumpkins. It looks a little out of place.
That is going to do it for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you are new to my channel. I would love to have you be a part of my YouTube family. Make sure you turn on that notification bell as well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.